Welcome to the Low Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope. Nothing said on the Low Carb MD podcast is medical advice. Please consult your own doctor before making any lifestyle changes.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast. Now we have a big shot with us today. Tro unfortunately had patient care stuff he had to take care of. And Anna Vocino, welcome. Great to have you back.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to find Tro, though, and hunt him down because this is the second time I've done the podcast where he conveniently hasn't been here.
Look, you know, at least I know you. He's had people that he scheduled that I have no idea who they are. And I'm like, Tro, I have to, like, how am I going to do this? Like, at the last second, like 1 minute before, he's like, I can't make it. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You're killing me. So we could talk bad about Tro and Vinnie.
You. Okay, great.
Vinnie Tortorich, won't hold it against you, but you've been Vinnie's buddy for a long time, and right. Now you're going on your own. Now he's like tagging onto your fame and success and all that.
I always I like to remind Vinnie, I was on TV way before you ever even had a social media account. So don't forget.
But you didn't have those bright pink pants on Oprah like he did.
I didn't do that. I didn't put a conch shell in front of my junk, and I didn't have Versace pink pants. Yeah.
Gosh, it's Vinnie's birthday today, everyone.
It's his birthday.
Holy cow, I got to tell him happy birthday.
Yeah, tell him happy birthday on socials.
And he's doing good.
He's good. He's healthy. He's great. He was supposed to be in London with his wife, but the morning that he's supposed to fly out the other day, his passport was expired. So he's going over to a friend's house and having a boy birthday.
Oh, how fun, man. Yeah. Oh, you got to check your passport, Vinnie. I've done that before. My buddy got stuck in another country. They go, no, it's like, it has to be 3 weeks before the expiration or 6 weeks or something like that.
I think it's like 6 weeks. Yeah.
6 weeks. It's still good for a month. They're like, you can't fly on that.
Nope.
And he was lucky. He had to sneak across the border, believe it.
What is the good of an expiration date if that's not the actual expiration date? They should backdate it.
You deal with foods and stuff, right? The expiration dates and all that kind of wild stuff. You got to deal with that in your industry.
I would love to talk about that. We should talk about food labeling. Best by dates is what they're called.
Yeah. Oh, you could talk about whatever you want. We don't have Tro to be a stick in the mud telling us what we can talk about and not. So it's just us now.
I've learned a lot.
And Patreon supporters, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you. You're in for a treat here. Anna is amazing. I
can't see the chat. Is there a chat?
Yeah, there's a chat. There's a chat. It'll pop up. No one's chatting yet. So maybe they'll ask questions.
Y'all start chatting.
They'll probably ask questions and all that kind of stuff. But
do it.
I'm excited about your cookbook. I got a sneak preview and all that stuff. Let's talk about that first and get the business stuff out of the way. Is your book's out now?
It is. It'll be out October 8th. So we're still in pre-order phase. So I'm on a tear to get everybody to pre-order. Please go over to Amazon or your favorite bookseller and pre-order. Support the work that we do, because I got to say, low carb, keto, no sugar, all that stuff is having quite a moment, but we're still very fringe. We're still not the accepted norm. People still, even doctors think that we're all crazy for saying, hey, you know what? Maybe it's the food you shove in your pie hole that could, use a little bit of a change. And then we're looked at as being the nutty ones.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know if you saw there was just Senator Johnson, Rob Johnson.
I don't know.
Ron Johnson. He just did a
roundtable.
He just did a roundtable with a bunch of people in the metabolic health realm. It's well worth watching. Anyone who hasn't watched it, I think it's well worth it. You listen, you go, oh my God.
Like Ron Johnson is what you're saying.
Well, this roundtable is really good because he had Callie Means and Casey Means and all these people in metabolic health, and they're talking, Chris Palmer talking about from a psychiatric standpoint. The Petersons were on there talking about carnivore and all that. But you're absolutely correct. The next day, all these doctors lost their minds saying, food has nothing to do with it. This is what we've been dealing with. And you're going into, if you say food has nothing to do with it, you are going into the most difficult area of low carb keto is Italian food, right?
Yeah.
Because that's people go, if I could just have Italian, because you go, what food do you love? There we go. Eat happy Italian.
Now, if you go try to find a meatball at a restaurant that is low carb, keto, or gluten free, you will not find it.
Yeah, and tell people
Doesn't
on that. Like
exist.
grandma, when they make it, they're putting a bunch of
Got to put the breadcrumbs.
breadcrumbs and all this stuff.
Sometimes they
Your
do the
sugars go crazy,
panko. Yeah.
and the amount of sugar they put in the sauce, you go, oh my gosh. And
You
then your
guys.
sauce came along, and you were nice enough to send me some. I greatly appreciate that, and it's so good.
Thank
We eat
you.
it with we cheat with the noodle. The Italians, like the big things, the big stumbling blocks for the Italians are like, no, it has to be real noodles. Like we're not dealing with like miracle noodles or the what's the other
I,
one I had? They're like,
I expect to get some blowback. The shirataki, the
yeah, but
mushroom
I still
noodles,
like them. I like it. The sauce is what matters to me. I'm okay with the pasta.
the
I'm
the
okay with
the
how
noodles are just a vehicle for the sauce. Let's be
totally.
honest.
It's like bread's
So
that's how you get the butter and is the bread, right?
that's right. That's
So,
right.
just being able to do it, but you have all kinds of good recipes. Like tell people it's so early in the morning to be talking about this because I'm fasting this morning, but
Well, our West, I'm fasting too. Have not eaten yet, so we'll just talk about food
oh, and you're
and
way ahead of me too, right?
no, I'm West Coast. I'm in San
Oh,
Ynez.
oh,
I'm just north of
sheesh.
you.
Oh,
Because aren't you
geez.
in
All
San
right.
Diego?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego right
Yeah.
now. San Diego and Arizona, I split time between the two.
Oh, nice. Yeah. No,
Uh,
I'm up in San Ynez. I got out of LA.
Beautiful,
I'm 2 hours
nice.
north,
Yeah.
in the wine country. But you know what?
Yeah,
A
that's my
lot of
favorite wine
Italians have
country.
settled
Oh
up
my
here.
gosh.
Yeah. So the Italians think I'm crazy for just having sauce on meat and vegetables. That's it. But it's
I know.
delicious.
I know my Italian friends here in San Diego, Little Italy, and I go and get a steak and like, what are you doing? You're killing us.
Get a
Because
Delmonico, always. Get a New
uh,
York at an Italian restaurant. So, in fact, oh no, it's in my bonus recipes. The New York is in my bonus recipes. You got to.
yeah, so all those things, and if you can make these kind of good, I haven't served your sauce to my Italian friends. They're like, wow, this is really good. Did you make this? I'm like, no,
You can claim that
I
you
could have
did.
taken, I kind of did. I heated it up on the stove and stuff.
That's listen. I'm going to tell you something. I started the company because a guy who lost 80 pounds cooking out of my first book called me for a consult, and I never do consults. That's Vinny's thing. And I was like, why is this guy calling me for a consult? And he says, I lost this weight. I've heard you talk about the podcast. You want to do your marinara. I'm a food manufacturer and I want to get like on the right side of history. So let's do this. And I was like, hold on. Doesn't everybody make their own sauce? Because I have the recipe in my book. Like, why you don't need to buy it, just make it. And he was like, no. Literally almost no one makes their own sauce unless you come from that cultural background, right? And so we wonderful man, he got us started and then we've since outgrown. And so trying to find people who will make the sauce, I said it has to taste like I snuck in your kitchen and made it for you. I'm not going to put anything in a jar that's anything less than that. And obviously there's going to be no sugar added. So we source these tomatoes. They're organic Italian San Marzano tomatoes, and they're sweet enough on their own. You don't need to add crap to it. And then the issue of finding the right olive oil, getting the right sea salt, getting fresh basil, fresh garlic. Like it's all very specific. And a lot of pasta sauces they use they're just paste and water with salt and dried herbs. That's what they are. And what's interesting is there's a little tiny company called Rayo's, and Rayo's just sold to Campbell's for $2.7 billion with a B. They inked the deal in March. So that makes a very interesting place for people like me who want to be part of a change because Rayo's pioneered this category where people
Yeah, they
would
absolutely
accept
did.
it. A
That's what I
high
lived
end.
on before you came around, right?
That's right. A lot of people did.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know they sold out now because I know they
Well,
have
they
it at
sold to
Costco and all
Campbell's.
that.
Yeah, they sold to
Wow.
Campbell's. And I mean, they had done 2 partial exits. Just anyway, insider information, but it's not, it's who cares. But they did the big exit just this year. And so it's interesting because now venture capital people are kind of swirling like, oh, sauce is all of a sudden interesting. It's not just a commodity, and my thing is I'm not doing it to turn a profit because Lord knows I haven't. We're in debt, but I'm doing it because I want to be part of the change. And then knowing that at economies of scale, we're going to be able to do this, but I want to get clean food out to our grocery stores. And it's hard as hell.
Yeah, it's such
not
a
easy.
hard thing. It's a hard thing. And I know I could talk about because they're my sponsor of the podcast. And I'll tell you a little inside scoop. We actually talked about on the podcast is health code. So Ben Bickman, who's one of the top guys around with
Love them.
nutrition, So he has a lot of ethics, but his brother was trying to start this company, and Joel, who's a great guy too. But Joel's like, Ben, if we do those products, like it's going to be so high price. Like he goes, but I'm not doing it unless it's there. So and they were debating back and forth. How do you make
It's
the
tough.
best? Yeah, because if it's too expensive, people won't buy it. But it's the
Right.
best thing you can have. So it's one of those, you get into that, it's a challenge. Like like where can you cut corners? Where can you save money and all that kind of stuff? And sometimes you go, ultimately, like if I have to pay a little bit more and have something, like if I'm making an Italian meal, I'm using your sauce that tastes great. Why would I put in those other guys who have tons of sugar and corn, high fructose corn syrup and all that stuff in their
Oh my
spaghetti
God.
sauce? Like if
The
I'm trying to be
ingredients are
healthy, I'll pay a
crazy.
couple bucks more and have something that's legit.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, we are priced higher because we're smaller than the other guys. We're now in about 450 grocery stores. Plus, we have our spice blends, which the sale of those are only available online. I'll be honest, the sales of the spice blends are very important to us being able to move into retail. And the reason why we're not just going to be a direct to consumer company is because even though we all love to order stuff online, we still go to the grocery store. I know I go to the grocery store several times a week, but we still go to the grocery store to buy our food. So it's very important for the right kinds of foods to be available at the grocery store so we can be part of the solution that we want to be a part of, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge thing because one of the huge problems is people can't a lot of people can't afford to eat high quality foods. And people on food stamps, if they can go to the grocery store and get good quality foods, right, with that or
Right.
whatever it might be, it helps a lot too. And friends of mine who work in the inner city, some people are doing great work, but they're like, look, no one will carry fresh vegetables and fruit because no one's buying them. They want all the processed garbage stuff to last
Right.
forever, right? And so, I have a doc friend of mine, Tony Hampton, who went into the local stores and goes, look, my people need vegetables, and he goes, no one buys it. He goes, I will get them to buy it from you if you supply it, because
Good for him.
there's nothing for them to buy. So in these food deserts, like if we can start thinking that way and saying, okay, if we can get these kind of foods in the market, so you can go, like they go and they go, okay, I'll pick this, right, instead of
Yep.
getting this corn syrup you're feeding your family and all these terrible things, and it makes a huge difference.
And there's all sorts of trickery that can be done with I mean, it's almost too innumerable how much food processing has made it so it's way easier on the manufacturer, way more profitable for the company, but just not at all a benefit for us as the consumer at all. Like, and it's shocked. Like, for example, Emerald's pasta sauce. Everybody loves Emerald. He's a treasure, a national treasure. Do you think that Emerald on his cooking show in his heyday would use soybean oil and sugar and all these things? No, he would not.
Yeah, and it's all that, and even my Italian friends, I ask them, I said, "Is this like if I eat at their house, it's totally different than the restaurant?" And they said, "Look, we can't afford to use these ingredients at the restaurant. We'll go
Right.
broke. Like we can't make a profit. You can't have pure olive oil. So if you go to
That's right.
restaurants, and I've been to some restaurants that are like all natural and organic and all that." And a friend of mine goes, "Watch, Brian, watch." And he asked the waitress, he said, "Hey, your olive oil, is it pure olive oil or is it mixed?" And she comes back, she's like, 60% canola, 40% olive oil.
Yep.
Because he said, I'm really allergic to oils. Like he goes, watch what happens. She's going to come back and tell us it's not pure. Because if he says, I get really sick if I eat. And so you go, wow, because it's cheap. I
It's
mean, how are you
true.
going to do it?
It
Like,
is. It is. Margins are a thing. And it is what I've learned over the 4 years that I've had the food company is that it is a miracle that we push any food throughout this country. And I know there's been lots of movements to eat local, buy from your local ranchers, buy from farms, and that's all great. And definitely, yes. I always say to people though, like, you know, buy what's available to you that you can afford because not everybody is at the same economic level of stuff. But I will say, not spending money on processed foods, you do have to put your dollars elsewhere and allocate your dollars elsewhere because the government is not going to subsidize vegetables anytime soon to lower the prices. It's just not going to happen. The government's not going to subsidize meat and in a way to make it more
no,
affordable.
it is, it
Eggs
is.
have gone up. Kroger and Albertsons are right now negotiating this merger, right? Which we're on the shelf at an Albertsons banner pavilions out here in California
Yeah.
and in Jewel in Chicago. And I I no shade. We're pitching Kroger right now. We want to be on the shelves of these retailers. We don't want them to merge. We don't want that because the prices will go up even more. It's not good. Just saying.
Yeah, it's
not that there's
when
anything we can do about it, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know that's a hard thing, and I know people have great products, and it's just hard. I mean, the marketing and all the garbage you have to go through is just so hard to get in, and the buyers are gonna, they want you to make it so much. It's just like, I think about the way medicine is now. The insurance is saying, okay, you're gonna see 50 patients a day so our people can get in, but the quality can't be as good when you're seeing 50 patients versus 12 patients or 8 patients or whatever it might be. And so they put the demands on the manufacturer, so they say, well, let's just use corn syrup, let's use all these things because it's cheaper, and then we could make our margins on it.
Yeah, they love the margins.
So let's talk about your recipes to make people hungry.
Let's talk about taking matters into your own hands.
Let's torture people on that. Like tell people some of the recipes that are in your book that are great. Like, what are your favorites? Like, if you go, this is
a reading from Eat Happy Italian.
Yes.
Chapter 1, verse 1. Oh, lemon mint cauliflower risotto. Delicious. Oh, yeah. This is
And what's your risotto made out of?
Not rice. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah.
Made out of cauliflower. There's
all right.
There's cauliflower gnocchi.
I can't look at the pictures right now.
Oh, you can't? Oh, because you're
hungry.
Oh, toughen up, friend.
Okay, I'll suck it up. Yes. It's what doesn't kill us make us stronger. Yeah.
One of my favorite recipes in here is for the ossobuco. Now, ossobuco is another classic Italian restaurant dish. They oftentimes use flour or cornstarch to thicken the sauce. So it's going to be real hard to get the low carb version. And they also serve it with potatoes. I make the easiest cauliflower mash. And then obviously I don't thicken the sauce with anything. You just reduce it. It is so easy to make. The only thing is you just have to ask the butcher to get your beef shanks cut horizontally so that you get that ossobuco look, with the bone. It's so good.
It's not hard to make, huh?
No, it's a braised meat.
All right.
This is the thing. Right. Italian food it's peasant food. It's people food. It's people using what's locally available, what's in season, and making different combinations of it with whatever meat that they have. It could be that you have chickens. Where my family is from, they don't do chicken and beef. They do horse and donkey and seafood. No joke. So, I don't have any horse or donkey recipes in this.
No, I would go to dinner at my Sicilian friend's house. I'm like, okay, where's the pasta is like an appetizer, a little thing. And then you have all the meat and stuff. It's different than what you think, like going to Olive Garden or something, right?
Oh yeah. It's not never ending breadsticks.
Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid.
Yeah. So I have lots of, everybody loves the classic pasta sauces, the amatriciana, the carbonara, the alla grigia, things like that you have the 4 Roman cacio e pepe. Cacio e pepe is having a moment because in Trader Joe's, every snack food is a cacio e pepe version of that snack food because it's just cheese and pepper. It's really good. So what if we did that with vegetables instead of pasta? It's still good. I mean, I know I'm talking to a warm audience here, but I'm preparing myself for the blowback that will happen from people who really want their creamy pasta cacio e pepe.
Well, I think there's blowback until they taste it. Then they go, oh, wait a minute. My Italian friend's like, here, eat it. Like, as a matter of fact, I'm taking your book. I'm taking your cookbook to my Italian friends. I'm like, I'm coming over for dinner. Make something out of this. Right.
Oh, that's good. It's amazing. Do you have somebody who'll do that?
Oh, yeah. These guys are top-notch chefs, know?
This soup I'm obsessed with. This is creamy pesto sausage soup. It's based on a Tuscan dish. A lot of these recipes are stuff I grew up with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Some of them are things just from traveling and being places. So
what are the biggest things that you're saying, okay, make your classic dishes? What are the biggest substitutions that you're doing? So are you doing like panko instead of like the breadcrumbs
no panko?
I mean, I'm sorry, like I'm talking about
the pork panko,
panko, stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah. So pork panko, I actually like in the meatballs. One trick that I do is if you take 3 or 4 pieces of salami, and it could be spicy or regular, and mince them and put them in with your meat. And I don't care if you have all ground beef or you do beef and pork or beef and veal, whatever meat blend you like. Put the minced salami in there. And then I like the pork panko, which is just the crushed up pork rinds. You can also just get a whole bag of pork rinds. Just make sure you read the label so that it doesn't have any added junk or sugar or weird seasonings or preservatives in it. And you can pulse them in the food processor or crunch them, take out your anger and crunch them in a bag. And put all that in there. So it's basically like 4 kinds of meat in a meatball. That's a true meatball. So, and then obviously all the flavoring, the seasonings, but that salami tends to give off the fat as well as the pork panko to make them just as tender. Now, you wouldn't cook them as long as you would with the breadcrumbs. You know what I mean? So you do have to be careful of that. And if you use any grass-fed beef, you definitely cook them a shorter time because grass-fed is not as yielding because the fat content's lower.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes you have to add it back in, right?
Yeah.
And what about like,
don't be afraid of the fat.
Well, fried calamari. Do you have a recipe for that in there?
I didn't do fried calamari. I do have a I do have a cioppino in here, but it's really easy to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, cioppino's so good.
Yeah.
It's just
well, I make my own
just more
cioppino.
about
That's
prep.
outstanding. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, once you get all the different things and you have it prepped, you're literally throwing it in the pan, leeks, onions, flavor, get it going, then just let it simmer. Everything is very simple to prep. I think probably the most complicated thing was the picture I showed earlier, which is the manicotti, because I've created a little like low carb version of a shell to roll up. So it's a little more labor intensive, but worth it. Different variations of lasagna. Plus I have a deconstructed like butternut squash lasagna soup. So that'd be fun for fall. Listen, I want to do classics. I want to do justice to as many recipes as I possibly can. The chicken piccata, chicken saltimbocca, veal milanese, all those things are very easy to do low carb versions of, right? Certain complicated pasta dishes, we're not going to get there, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But if we can get the flavor profiles and do it with something else, hell yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, that's my Italian friends. I remember over the years, one of them he's doing. Frank, love you, man. He's doing it right now, low carb and stuff. But he's like, oh, Doc, it's so hard. It's so hard with the bread and the pasta and all this stuff we're used to, and it's just such a tradition, And so when you can make it that way, and they can make it, and their family loves it. That's the great thing about Italians, that I loved from my old practice. I had a lot of Italian patients, and they would always like every holiday they would bring, but they're bringing all the stuff I can't eat, right? I'm like, I'm not going to eat it, right? So finally, out of their love, they said, we figured out how to do a low carb lasagna. We figured out how to do a low carb, and they would make me stuff like out of love. Like it was so nice, right?
That's
now
so
I can just give them your book. I go, here's the book. Make me stuff out of there.
You're good to go with
Pick anything you want out of there, guys, because they know how to cook. But it's the love they want to show, right? That's how they show the love of bringing stuff for people for the holidays or wherever. They're so kind.
Italians
That's such a great.
They're insane. Like if you've ever been to an Italian wedding, the dessert table is like, why? What are we doing? Like it's like a point of pride to have like the most ridiculous amount of food on a table that you've ever seen. But that's literally the culture. So
you go to their house for dinner and like, you're like, oh, I'm stuffed. Like, oh, that was the appetizer. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a long night. And they look at you like
our stomachs have shrunk with the way that we eat and fast. That's that. And that is real. And that is true. And even my own daughter's like, you hardly eat anything anymore. And I was like, well, I eat the right things.
So funny. I almost died at an Italian wedding, actually. I was there sitting with my wife at a table, and this young girl comes in with a tight black dress, sits on my lap and gives me a kiss on the cheek, says, Dr. Lenzkes, I love you. And then like walked away. And my wife looks at me like, who was that? I'm like, I have no idea who that was. And it turns out it was my friend's daughter. She was saying she loved me because her dad got so much healthier and his blood pressure got better and his diabetes got better. And I'm like, oh, that's
amazing.
That's who it is. Like, my wife's going to kill me. I'm like, I have no idea who this I'm like, I don't know, sweetie.
I don't know. I swear.
And then when I saw her with her dad, I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. We met a year ago at this other thing. So it's just hilarious. It's still funny. Like whenever we go to a wedding or something, go, remember that day? That was funny.
Oh my God.
So anyhow. Yeah, it's just I just love that you're doing this. Is amazing,
I listen,
should we pick on Vinnie and Tro for a minute? Well,
oh yeah, we can do that. I'm always happy to do that.
Gosh, we don't need to pick on Tro. I was thinking about when we were talking about the meatballs. Like, if Tro was here, it would have went to a different level, right? Talking about meatballs, and he would be doing like high school jokes and things like that.
I'm always ready for.
And Vinnie for sure would have.
D's nuts, absolutely.
Yeah.
All of it. All
Yeah.
always and in all ways.
But isn't it
Yeah.
amazing how you all cross paths? Like the impact Vinny's had, I hate to admit this, but I had patients come in. I go, how did you learn about this? Vinny, like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm like, wow, it's amazing
That's great.
the impact these guys have and, ongoing.
Yeah. So Vinny, he had trained me a little bit. I knew him ancillarily through friends of friends, and in fact, I think he still owes me 3 sessions from like 2010. So I need to follow up on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and get some. No,
Yeah.
he's given me plenty of free advice over the years. No, and he was like, I know that you know how to produce podcasts and let's do a thing. And I was like, what? No, I'm not producing your podcast, bro. Like I was like offended that he asked. And then he sent me his book and it was so good. I was like, all right. I said
Yeah,
yes.
really good.
But I also feel like that's kind of a pattern in my life. Like I'm very much, how there's that phrase they say, like, unless it's a hell yes, consider it a hell no. And I think that's a really great framework to live your life by. And my life does not go that way at all. It's never, I'm always like, okay, I guess. And then it turns into something. But I think that's just my personality. I think that's just coming from comedy. I think it's just from being jaded in LA, being, you know what I mean, working in entertainment. But yeah, so starting that podcast, and he did not know how to turn on a computer. And he would show up in my garage and we would do 3 episodes on a Sunday to go out every week. And he brought over various like throat lozenges and sprays and stuff. I was like, yeah, you're fine. We're only talking for 3 hours. And he
You'd be
was
all
worried.
prepared. That's
Yeah,
amazing. And he just keeps going on. I mean, his
yeah.
podcast is like every day, right? It's
He's gone
insane.
down. He's back. He was at 5 days. Now he's back down to 3 days a week.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so hard to
It's too much.
just to do. It's like it's incredible. I do one a week, and I'm like, hey, my wife's like,
I
are you
know.
ever like, I have 30 today for my other podcast and this one, but
Yeah.
at least I get to hang out with you, and this makes it a lot of fun.
You have to put in an infrastructure and a team of people because this just doesn't happen. It doesn't just get posted and like all the social media stuff that you have to do. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, which I think is, a testament to you guys being around for so long and me and Vinny being around for so long. We have good teams.
We have
that
great
back end
Patreon
stuff.
supporters because we don't have any sponsors on ours. Unlike Vinny, who has like 300 or something, I think. Like, for this podcast,
No, we just
I don't
have Villa
that.
Capelli, and then we sponsor our own. We basically advertise our own products on the podcast.
Yeah, that's
But
great. I mean, that's it.
yeah,
I mean, getting the word out is so good, and letting people know, because when you're like-minded, and I may have misspoken, I'm so used to doing Life's Best Medicine podcast that I want to make it clear that Health Code is not a sponsor of this podcast. They're a sponsor of my other podcast. So, just to clarify for anyone who's like, wait a minute, you're sponsored by them? No, we're not. Oh
cut it out
my
in post.
gosh.
What?
Look who's possibly coming in
Stop
here.
it.
Oh, he changed his mind. Might have been someone else.
Wow.
Might have been
Was
someone
it
else.
an
Oh, they're teasing
interloper?
us. Let's see. There might be an interloper here. It looked like Tro was trying to log in, but I'll see if I see Tro in here. But I don't think so. No, just us. Oh, we got nervous for a second there. So yeah, Tro's doing great stuff. He's doing a lot of good stuff. Vinny and these guys have a different mind. Like they're entrepreneurs and they're like want to save the world. And just talking to Vinny was so impressive. He was telling the story about when his wife got back and she took the wrong bag and they got all the way home and had to go all the way back. I don't know if he told you that story, but it was like
What a nightmare.
in the middle of the night, brutal. But she got mad at him because he was still responding to all of his people. And I see that Vinny will come on and respond to like 30 people, right away at night, like at 11. I'm like, shouldn't you be in bed, old man, getting some rest? But he's so like very few people engage like that, and it's pretty amazing that he's still so connected and helping people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I agree. I share that philosophy as well. I try to respond as much as possible. Also, too, it's just good karma. You never know. You never know when I was writing you to blurb the book and I appreciated it so much and everything you wrote. It's like you just never know. You just never like someday you're gonna need help and nobody's an island and we all help each other. So
yeah, no, I was honored because I think it's so important. I see the benefit and the value to people. It's so important because traditions, the holidays are coming up. So when people can like have their Italian food and not have to eat all this garbage stuff and gain 30 pounds during the holidays, if they can maintain and then January comes, you could get, instead of having to dig yourself out of the hole, you can just keep going with what you're doing. So So that's good. Do you have any Italian bread recipes in there?
Well, I do have, okay, so I have a recipe that I've used in my low carb stuffing in the first book, which is, I just call it grain-free easy bread, but it's very thick. So it's almost like a cornbread, how it turns out, because it uses almond flour. Now, keep in mind,
Mm.
almond flour in high quantities is not going to be low carb. So you have to, be judicious.
Yeah. Don't not go
And
crazy.
I'm going to, yeah, don't go crazy. You could also use the pork rinds in place of the almond flour if you want to keep it more low carb. Absolutely. So, and I always give the disclaimer of I am not specifically keto in my
Yeah.
recipes because, and there's a reason for this. I am receiving new people from all different stages. And I'll get back to your bread question in a second. But I am a celiac, right? So, and I'm very deep in the gluten-free and celiac community, which is a very different person who finds my work versus somebody who's gone keto carnivore. So I like to have a wide variety of recipes. They're all going to be grain-free. They're all going to be gluten-free. But then in my desserts chapter, I do use real sugar when I make desserts. And that's because I believe in living a real life, and you will come to the holidays and you will make a dessert. Your kid's going to have a birthday. You're going to do something. 100% of people who give up sugar eat sugar again at some point. That's just real life. So I would rather arm people with something that helps them succeed, right? So the bread recipe that I actually just posted this recipe on my Substack this past week. In here is the low carb panzanella salad. Now, panzanella salad just means bread salad because Italians, again, peasant food. They're great at figuring out ways of using leftovers in a way that, like, now it's a fresh new dish. So panzanella is this beautiful salad, the mozzarella, the vegetables, you can add meat to it. And I use the grain-free easy bread to toast croutons. So it gives you that feeling. You know what I mean? I love a crouton. My husband hates a crouton. We argue about it because we've run out of things to argue about because we've been married for 25 years. So we argue about croutons. But
yeah, that's a hard one. Like when you get your, Caesar salad, you're like, I have to pick out the croutons. Like
people like the crouton.
maybe one will sneak
Can't
in
have
there.
it at a restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a way around the croutons issue. Yeah.
So then you have your panzanella and life is good. And
awesome.
Plus the best, I call it my dressing triumvirate. You'll never buy balsamic vinaigrette, Italian dressing, or Caesar dressing ever again. You will use the recipes in here and put them on everything. You can use them as marinades. You can obviously put them on salads, vegetables. Just trust. Okay.
Do you sneak your own in when you go out to eat? Do you sneak your own dressing in?
I don't. I try not. I don't actually love to get salads from restaurants.
Yeah, the more I'm around, the more I look at the,
I know.
who convinced me she's a gut microbiome expert, and she was, and I said, what do you tell your people who have bad guts? She goes, don't eat salad. And I was like, what? Why do you say that?
Does it upset the biome?
And she says, because when I'm looking out the back window where I work, there's a organic lettuce place behind it. And she said they spray the living hell out of it every morning. And I watch these guys in hazmat suits and they're like skull and crossbones on the side of the truck. And I go, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
And as a matter of fact, I think
lettuce?
it was Vinny. It was Vinny who I'm like, I don't know if this is Sabine Hazen, who is a gut microbiome expert in Malibu. And the next day, Vinny posted something. He goes, BS with the organic lettuce, and he posted something saying the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, because it's something like they only have to go like 6 weeks or 6 whatever. If they could show any damage on the leaves of this, whatever it is, they could spray with whatever they want, and they can call it organic still. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Vinny talked about, as a matter of fact, Vinny had talked about
that's margins at work again. They're not going to lose their margins.
Yeah, you can't lose your crop. So then they say, well, that's the rules. And you go, well, that's not organic. It says it, but it's not. But when you see how much that can mess us up too, and so I agree. I mean, lately I've been looking at vegetables going, yeah, no thanks. I don't want to eat that. I mean, especially from a restaurant where they're getting it just mass produced and, and you know how it is. If you make healthy food, if you grow your own fruit, like I've grown strawberries and you go, like after a day, they're mush.
Yeah.
But you get it from Costco and it's there for like 6 weeks and you're like, oh yeah, I got those 6 weeks ago. Go and eat your stuff. And you go, well, how can that possibly be? It's not natural.
I think it's called Barron's. I can't remember this book I'm reading, and the chapter I'm on right now is about the Driscoll family and the whole berries thing. Y'all.
Oh no.
It's not good. I'm not going to go into it because I need to finish this chapter.
Oh no.
But it's not good.
I know. I'm listening to Cheryl Atkinson's books called Follow the Science. And right now, I have to take breaks because I'm like when you hear the conflict of interest and all the bad, like our food supply and all that, like what Robert Kennedy's talking about right now, you go, oh my gosh, like the
It's
dyes, they go,
crazy.
this was a closed dye, and then they say, oh, let's just put in all these foods that our kids are eating, and that's why having something like yours, where you could just make a big, throw it
Right.
in the Instant Pot and cook something, and I think the
Well,
biggest concern I'll have to ask you is like that people are time conscious and they're like, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
going to spend 3 hours making dinner.
No, nor should you. In
And
fact, I just signed the deal for my 4th cookbook that I'm writing right now. I got to turn in the draft, and it's for happy hour, but it was almost going to be easy weeknight meals because I'm at a stage in my life that unless I'm recipe writing, I've got to get dinner on the table fast. So it's very important that I get easy, and there are plenty of easy weeknight meals in this book in Eat Happy Italian. So the key is look for stovetop recipes. Stovetop recipes are the fastest way to get the food on the table. Anything that involves the oven is going to take a little longer. So that's kind of the rule of thumb when you're looking at instructions in a recipe, if something's going to work easily. The other thing is just, and I'm the worst at this, just trying to do a little bit of meal planning at the beginning of the week. I'm the worst at it because I'm so capricious. I'll be like, man, I don't feel like having that. I'm going to have something else. Like I'm very, I change my mind all the time. And, but getting your stuff organized in the kitchen, and also to give yourself a little grace. If you're not used to cooking, it's going to take you longer the first and second time you make a recipe. Don't worry, you're going to memorize it, and it's going to become, and then you're going to start to change it, and you're going to make your own little touches. You're like, what if I tried mushrooms, or what if I tried this? And then it'll become your family favorite, and then you'll forget you ever got it from my book. That's what I want. That's what I want for you.
Yeah, I hardly ever, except your recipes. I mean, I'll go, oh, I think this sounds good. Let's put that in there. Like, spice it up a little bit, make it a little different. But you said something I can't let it pass. Did you just say you're making happy hour recipes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. Because, that's so important. Like people go to parties and you go and you're like, oh, everything they're going to have, there's going to be chips and crackers, all this stuff I can't really eat. And so you just bring your cheese and meat plate or something like that, or your, whatever. But being able to make whatever chicken wings and make it in a way that's low carb.
I'm going to tell you what.
Yeah.
If you go to my Substack and you go to the recipe index, the appetizer recipes alone, believe it or not, when you're making appetizer recipes at home, they're really easy to do low carb versions. Not when you're at a restaurant, because they fill them with all kinds of stuff and they only serve them with chips or crackers or carbs or,
and they'll fry them in bad oils, or they make
fry them in the bad oils.
Yeah.
So there's so many things to be done. So this next book is happy hour. It's sips, dips, and bites. So there will be low carb, low sugar, no sugar cocktails. And the only sugar will be if there's a little bit of fruit squeezed into it. But mocktails, cocktails, and then some dips and some bites. And it'll be a smaller book, just like a fun, just so you have options. You know what I mean? Just so that there's ideas. Because the other idea is the idea of the classic cocktail. I mean, that's a purely American invention. We do cocktails better than anybody. But any cocktail you go to, any place you go to, and these mixologists are incredible. But my husband cringes going with me because this is the routine. I look at the little cocktail menu and I'm like, what's the least sweet one that you have on here? And they're like, oh, this one, the thing with the thing. And I go, okay, I'll have that one, but even less sweet than how the mixologist makes it. And these are like $15 to $21 drinks. Like it's ridiculous, right? But I'm like, I'm going to treat myself. And it never fails. They bring it and I'm like, that's too sweet. And I hand it to my husband.
Yeah.
And then I get a martini.
So he's happy
like,
with
that's
that.
it. Yeah, he is.
He's
like,
okay,
you don't like anything. Why do you? Everything has too much sugar for you.
I know it is
ordering
crazy.
it.
Like you see certain things like, oh, I'll have an old fashioned. You see how much sugar, you're like, oh my gosh, or like a mojito or whatever, margarita, forget it. And you go,
all those classics. So the margarita, for example, I took Blanco tequila and peeled a couple things off a tangerine and a couple things off a lime, dropped those peels in like how I used to make limoncello. Don't make that anymore because the sugar. And just let it infuse for a couple of weeks. Now you can make a low sugar, no sugar margarita with fresh
Oh,
lime juice.
you drop the peels in the
In the tequila,
tequila.
in the mason
Let it
jar.
sit there and enjoy.
Let it sit
Yeah.
there and then you have you can infuse anything in liquor. So you can get all these flavor profiles without having to put triple sec or Cointreau or, the sugary things in there. That bourbon aficionados are going to kill me. Weller Bourbon was doing an event at my local grocery store, and I went over and got a couple bottles. So I understand that this is Weller privilege, that I have these really nice bottles, but they were super cheap at this event. I don't know why. So I took a giant mason jar of Weller and put a bunch of in-season cherries in there and let them sit for 2 to 3 weeks. And then you strain out the cherries and you throw them away. Now you can make an old fashioned with an orange seltzer or just a plain seltzer, the cherry infused bourbon, and a little bit of orange peel. And now you have no sugar cube. You have no Luxardo sugar. You've got the low sugar. So there's ideas. I got
All right.
ideas.
I'm gonna get your book then when that comes out too.
Yeah.
And then I'm
2026.
gonna try to trick my neighbors and see if I can do it. I've tricked them with a lot of stuff so far. It's been great.
That's good. Good job.
I've used a couple of Maria Emmerich's recipes.
Oh, good.
It sounds so gross, but it's a hard-boiled egg. They call it hard-boiled egg, but I don't do it with hard-boiled eggs. But it's a pudding that you can make, and no one guesses that there's eggs in it. They can't taste it because the chocolate overwhelms the cacao,
Great.
overwhelms it. So things like that, where you're trying to get
I love
protein
it.
into your kids or your grandparents or something like that. There's a lot of tricks you can do. And
Absolutely.
now my Italians we can trick, so this is great.
We
And
got
it's real
Italian
food.
tricks.
I mean, really, you're going
It's real
back to
food.
what it
Yeah.
probably was like when your grandparents made it,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And then everything gets so cheapened and like let's just throw in breadcrumbs and everything and fry everything. And
It's so funny because my dad's first generation American, his parents came over from Puglia, and he was told, don't speak Italian. You only learn English. You assimilate, assimilate, assimilate. And there were certain things about growing up, that you were like, ooh, like it felt, I was embarrassed as a kid that we would jar the sauce and like, why can't we just eat the thing that everybody else eats? Like you wanted to be like all the other kids, you know what I mean? And it's so funny how it all comes full circle. You're like, nope, now we're doing the whole thing. I'm hanging the clothes on the clothesline.
The other kids are eating SpaghettiOs out of a can, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's so crazy.
Yeah.
When you look at yourself as like a little like 1970s,
Chef Boyardee.
80s kid, yeah, going like, I just have a SpaghettiOs. And they're like, no.
Of course not. Eat the real food, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And all the other kids are like sick and diabetic now, and now you're healthy, It makes a difference in these things.
Boy, oh boy, do we need to be a part of that change? Good Lord.
Yeah, just think if they have this kind of real food in the schools where they can eat real food, it is tragic. Yeah, you see what they're eating, it's all chemicals and bad. And no wonder, we grew up in the era of, all the Entenmann's cake. They go, it's low fat, so you can eat as much as you want, right? But it's all sugar. It's 100%
Entenmann's
sugar.
was I ate so much Entenmann's. I hit the limit on Entenmann's as a kid. But it's no wonder that they diagnosed me with celiac. They're like, girl, you really pushed it. You really played it fast.
Yeah, a lot of that's the gut. Yeah, and the gut inflammation and the microbiome issues. And you eat real food. And I've noticed this from always. And you can ask anyone who's monitoring continuous glucose monitors, which I do with most of my patients now. When they go to Italy, they're eating pasta, bread, pizza, because they're like, I'm in Italy, I'm going to enjoy it. And their sugars look perfect. They come back here and they go to one of these chain restaurants and it's horrific. And I think it has to do with the amount of processing of the food. If you're making your own pasta is a lot different, grinding it and having, just think of all the chemicals and stuff that's in the pasta these days, or what they're making the bread out of. And no wonder our body just can't digest this bad stuff.
No. Yeah. I was just in New York doing demos. So we got on the shelves of all the food towns in the New York, New Jersey area. And, I'm in the store in Morningside Heights and I'm speaking to this woman and she loved, to give out the samples. And by the way, when I sample the sauce at grocery stores, I have to cut up bread to sample it with. And this is why I say we're still very much on the fringe, because people will say to me, because here's how I get them in. I say, would you like to try some no sugar added pasta sauce? And if they're interested in that, no sugar. Yeah. I would like to try that. I've been trying to watch the sugar. Great. And then I'll say, do you want bread with that? Or I can just give you a spoon, because I'm, trying to be conscious of them watching their sugar. Like, oh yeah, bread's fine.
Yeah.
Almost every time without exception.
Yeah.
But it's just culturally, that's where we are. But I was speaking to this woman and she's like, no, I'll have the spoon. And then I always perk up to the person who says the spoon because they're the rare person who kind of already is on board with what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
But she said her daughter, who is 14, was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at 14 and has an A1C of 14.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God. And I said, did they say anything about changing the diet and cutting out the sugars? And she was like, sort of, but they're like, you can have these crackers and you can have this special dietary, carbs.
Yeah, they just don't. It's such a hard thing. As a matter of fact, just yesterday I had a patient. She came in. She's on her own, 100% without any support from her doctor. She's lost 38 pounds. She got herself off insulin. She got her off 3 blood pressure medicines. She's off her antidepressant medicine. And she's like, oh my gosh. I go, how did you do this? And she said, I watched a video of Jason Fung and I just said, that's it. And I started laughing. I go, I saw a video of him saying, hey, look, you're insulin resistant. Here's how we fix the problem. And she did it on her own. She's like crying, hugging me, like, I'm so glad I have support now. Like now I know I have someone who knows.
That's
amazing. And so it's amazing. I go, well, heck, you don't even need me now. You figured it out. You're doing, like, she knew. She goes, I feel inflamed all the time. My joints hurt, my back hurts, everything's terrible. So making these kind of changes, and when you have someone like seriously, the biggest if you ask anyone who's on a low carb diet, the first thing they're like, Italian food, I'm gonna miss a pizza and lasagna, those kind of things. So hey, if you can make it,
I've got 3 pizza crust recipes in this book. I do not mess around, and here's why. The first one is the simplest one. People know it. It's with the almond flour. Then a mom wrote in, and moms always get me, like talking to that mom of the kid, the 14-year-old with an A1C of 14. When the moms write me and say, my kid has a nut allergy, what else can we do? That's when I came up with the cauliflower one. And then somebody said, cauliflower, it's too much to work with. Then I came up with the pork rind pizza crust, you know what I mean? For an even lower carb version. So I feel this for everybody. And I will say this too. Pizza is one of the things, it's one of our culturally celebratory foods. We have pizza parties. Pizza's a big deal. There's Chuck E. Cheese, for Christ's sake. People take their kids for birthday parties. Pizza is a big celebratory food. I know that like a pizza crust itself, even if it's low carb, is going to be higher carb. You can make a sausage crust too, by the way. But making these options, having these things to have this option for your family. Because I know people live in mixed households. Not everybody's doing low carb in the entire household, but you need to be able to have these things. We need to be able to have our pizza.
Yeah, and you could have it, and then someone else has the other pizza, right? And then you go, okay, ours is better. So it's funny enough, my wife, when they were filming the movie Fat Fiction, they came to my house and they go, just make a normal meal. So she made the sausage crust pizza, and everyone at the table had a CGM, and I'm like, oh, this could be bad. This could be bad if it's not as good as we think it is. And every single person's sugars either were flat or dropped after eating that, right? And you go, okay, cool. And they were all laughing, going, look at my CGM readings. Look at, and so the whole movie was about eating low carb, but it'd be terrible if their sugars went crazy. Go, oh, what kind of sausage did you use, right? So,
that's true. You do have to check the labels on sausage. You got to check the labels for the added sugar. And I will say too, because if you have no added sugar for the sausage, the only thing that you're going to have carbohydrate wise is a little bit of lactose in the cheese and the naturally occurring carbs in the tomato sauce, which if you're eating that much fat, hopefully, like you said, will keep everyone stable, right?
Yeah, and even like what you're saying too is if you're having one of these meals that you're making and you do have a little sugar in the dessert, see what your continuous glucose monitor does after that, because that fat in the meal slows the release, just like with alcohol. Like someone just yesterday or 2 days ago I saw on social media, she actually tested that and goes, okay, let's see, if I do 6 shots and I have a full stomach or an empty stomach, and when she had an empty stomach, it took 8 hours for that to come. And it's the same thing, if you have an empty stomach, you need a cannoli, your sugar's gonna be up for a long time. But if you have it after your big meal, it goes up and comes back down pretty quickly, So it does make a difference for sure.
It's interesting that the patient education that I'm sure that you guys do, because I'm in the grocery stores every weekend demoing sauces. And the reason why is because if you go to a grocery store and you see a wall of pasta sauce, everyone's going to buy their same tried and true, their Rayos, their whatever they buy. You don't try new things in the pasta sauce category. So I've got to get people trying it. So it's very important. And then once they hear the brand story, they taste how good it is, they will switch. Great. So it's effective for me to do that. But when I talk about the no sugar added thing, and people are trying to watch their sugars, some people are, pre-diabetic, some people are full-blown type 2 diabetic, and they're trying to really rein it in. And the conversations that I have are always very telling because I'm like, I don't think these doctors are educating the patients. One woman said she was worried about the net carbs in the thing. And she was like, because my serving is 7 grams of carbohydrate from the tomato, right? And the garlic and the basil. That's what comprises the carbohydrate content of the pasta sauce. And she was like, but it says, but 4 grams of net carbs. It's like, well, you should just worry about the 7 grams. And she was like, no. And we kind of got into this discussion about it. And then she was like, and she pulled other brands off the shelf. She's like, this one only has 2 grams of net carbs. So yours is too high in carbs. And it was just really funny. I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to say anything to convince somebody. I'm like, okay. Just also that one has pear concentrate, honey, and something else in it, but have at it. Even though they say 2 grams of net carbs.
There's so many tricks, and they have like all these different names for sugar on there, coconut sugar, this sugar, this, and so it doesn't add up to be way up at the top of the list. So it's like it's diluted out, but it's the same
and the margin of error. You have 1 gram plus or minus margin of error, so you could technically put it down to way fewer carb grams, and that's why I'm like, no, read the ingredient list. Don't worry so much about what the macro breakdown is.
Exactly. Look at the ingredients.
Yeah.
And then all these different high fructose corn syrup and all these different things. It's just incredible what's in there. So you're doing a good job. So how do people how do they track you down? How do they get your book? How do they follow you? How do they get your sauces?
If you go to eathappyitalian.com, I have a lot of killer bonuses for people who pre-order the book. And all you got to do is pre-order the book, upload your receipt. The bonus recipes alone are insane. And here's why. Because I wound up having to postpone a trip to Italy until after I turned in this draft. So all the new recipes that I got on that trip are in that bonus recipes, and they're really good. And AnnaVocino.com, Eat Happy Italian, Eat Happy Kitchen. I'm not hard to find online. If you support low carbers, please pre-order the book. I just had a call with my publisher. They're like, yeah, no, it really matters you getting those pre-orders. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I think it helps.
I hate having to sell so much. I hate it. It goes against the fiber.
It is, but when people believe in something, right? Look at Vinny, like when he's coming out with a movie, you get all these pre-orders so you can pay for your dang movie, and then they delay the release, and you have to do all this stuff. It's kind of crazy.
If I'm not going to advocate for myself, who is? So here I am. So thank you for having me.
No, it's always awesome to talk to you. I love what you're doing, and we're all obviously all selfish because those recipes are going to super help people, like especially the Italians out there who go, yeah, I'm not doing keto. Like it's amazing. I talk to them like, yeah, I'll die a few years earlier. I'm okay with that. Until you get there and you can't play with your grandkids and go, and I think another take home while we're talking about the Italians is if you look at longevity, there's these little Italian villages that they live forever, but it has to do with family values and taking care of grandparents, and the grandparents taking care of their grandkids, and the respect they have for each other and loving each other and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
There's a place called Risotto, Pennsylvania, and when Eisenhower had his heart attack, I looked at the data, and it's really interesting because they were overweight, they smoked and drank, and there was no difference between them and anyone else, but it really came back to community. And so if you can make your healthy food and have your community, that is just helping your health that much more.
Great. I'm all about it. Let's make each other, let's lift each other up, folks.
Yeah. Keep doing your thing. So everyone,
eat good food.
Find Anna, go get your good food. You'll be the celebration of your town.
Can we break our fast now?
Food. You can. I'm too busy. I got to go see patients now.
I can't until 1:00. That's 2 more hours.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Even though we talked about food and all the people listening are like, oh man, Anna,
I'm gonna take a salt pill. That's my trick. I take a salt pill.
Yeah,
salt. Have you tried his ultra salt?
Yeah,
I take a salt pill and a glass of water, and it helps the hunger pangs go away.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting because sometimes you get these sugar cravings because your salt level's low. So if you take salt, like insulin, not only insulin goes up to get rid of sugar, but also insulin, when it goes up, it makes your salt level go up because you absorb more salt in your kidneys when your insulin goes up. So if you eat more salt, your insulin comes down a little bit and you lose that sugar craving. So a lot of people when they're fasting will put salt on the back of their hand. And like what you're saying is true physiologically. So
Just don't do the tequila beforehand. Just do the salt.
Yeah,
first.
just do the salt and pretend
Yeah,
like
that's it.
even if you put a little lime, that's better than the
Yeah,
tequila.
don't do the tequila.
But
100%.
we'll have you back on when your happy hour book comes out, because
Hell yeah.
that's a huge one for a lot of people going
That'll
to
be fun.
holiday parties and all that kind of fun stuff. So keep up the good work, and thank you for joining me. And next
Thank
time
you for having me, my friend.
I'll
I
stick you with
appreciate
Tro, but it's great seeing you.
I'll find that guy. I'll find that guy.
All right, and Patreon supporters, thanks for joining us. Thanks for keeping us going, because now you have Italian restaurant food you can make, and so thank you for your support, and we'll figure all this stuff out, make us all healthier, and live forever, and pick on each other for a long time to come.
That's right.
All right, Anna, have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon by going to lowcarbmd.com.